roles and responsibility. Again, the COVID officer roles and the ordinary COVID officer's roles and responsibilities. Some general advice that we would have for the lead COVID officer, and then, like I said earlier, we will take the questions at the end. So just a reminder, all existing safeguarding rules and requirements must be in place for clubs to return to water, and where they're required, they will need valid vetting credential, valid safeguarding training, Swimireland membership, your qualification, and again, signed code of conduct. Now, there is a new signed code of conduct sent out to clubs today. That will need to be signed by everybody that will be returning to water, whether it's swimmers, coaches, committee members, and so forth. Okay. So, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we had to introduce 2 new roles for every club. And the first one is the lead COVID-19 officer. Again, they need to be approved by your club committee. And it's advised that they are a current club committee member. It's not a requirement, but it's just, we advise it for handiness sake more than anything, because you will be reporting back into the main committee at various meetings and so forth. So it's just for more convenience than anything. And again, the other new role is the COVID-19 officer, the general COVID-19 officer. And again, even though you have attended the Swimireland training workshop, for you to perform the role at a club session, you need to be approved by your club committee. So again, the club should set up a COVID-19 subcommittee. The lead COVID-19 officer will chair these meetings and report back to the main committee. There should be a maximum of 6 COVID-19 officers to sit on this subcommittee. Now, you may have, and if you have big clubs and whatever, you will find that you can have maybe 10 to 15 ordinary COVID-19 officers, and that's fine. There is no limit as to how many COVID officers a club may have, but there can only be a maximum of 6 of those COVID officers sitting on the subcommittee. And again, the main committee will decide who sits on that subcommittee. Okay. So the lead COVID-19 officer. Again, the following roles are excluded for being the lead COVID officer. The club children's officer, which is the CCO, the coach teacher, club chairperson, club treasurer, or club secretary. Again, these roles, they're being excluded because all these roles have a considerable workload on as it is, and there is, because of people trying to get back into the water, whatever, there's extra responsibilities on them in order for that to happen. So we've decided, that those people are excluded for acting in the role of the lead COVID officer. So that's your club children's officer, the coach teacher, club chairperson, club secretary, and club secretary or treasurer. So the roles and responsibilities for the lead COVID-19 officer. Again, keep up to date with the COVID-19 advice and protocols. And like I said, all of our documents for returning to water, they're all live living documents. Okay, they're changing nearly week by week. So it's very important that you keep up to date with all the advice and the protocols that is active at the moment. Again, promote good practice, lead by example, especially with the social distancing, ensure that you are social distancing at all times. And again, you have good coughing and sneezing etiquette and so forth. Again, attend your Swimireland COVID-19 officer training. That's where we are today. Lead in the return to water risk assessment. So we've issued a risk assessment to each club, which needs to be completed. We have filled up a certain amount of it, which some of it is generic, but the rest of it needs to be filled up by each club, because each facility is different. And you'll find that a lot of facilities have different protocols and whatever. So therefore, your risk assessment must be populated by those procedures and protocols. Again, you receive, record and report non-compliance of the current procedures and protocols that are out there. Ensure records are kept for contact tracing purposes, and we'll go into that a little bit more detail later on. And again, receive self-report screening forms for everybody that is attending a training session. That includes all the swimmers, coaches, the COVID-19 officer that is on duty for that session. And again, where applicable, receive medical certificates for people that may have been had the COVID-19 and then they would require a medical certificate from a medical practitioner to say that they are well enough to return to training. Again, check the signage in the facility. That is the current, most up-to-date signage available to deal with the current protocols and advice that is out there. Okay, and they should be on the notice boards and in various locations throughout the facility. Communicate update information. So it's important that any updated information that you have that is communicated to all the swimmers, parents, coaches, committees and so forth by using whatever platform that you normally would use within your club, whether it's with WhatsApp messages, emails, or whatever best suits your club. Again, liaise with the facility, ensure that up-to-date protocols are implemented. You know, if new protocols are put in place, it's important that the facility put those protocols in place also. Again, report to club committee COVID-19 protocols concerns that you may have, and again, report to facility any COVID-19 protocol concerns that you might have within the facility, whether the wash stations aren't being kept stocked up or whatever you feel is a concern in relation to COVID-19. Again, update committee in relation to all COVID-19 protocols, and just bear in mind you are the point of contact for all COVID-19 concerns between facility and the club, and again from the club to the facility. So requirements for the lead COVID-19 officer is to be a Swimireland member, a Swimireland COVID-19 officer training completed, signed revised code of conduct, again a completed self-report screening form for every time that you attend a session. We also recommend that the club sets up a generic email such as Kilkenny Swim Club COVID-19 officer at gmail.com or Ask Our Swimming Club COVID-19 officer at gmail.com. You know, it's very important that the lead COVID-19 officer has a specific email address that he can send and receive emails to in relation to screening forms, etc. Again, valid Swimireland vetting, Safeguarding 1 in the Republic of Ireland, Safeguarding Children and Young Persons workshop in Northern Ireland. And again, it should be listed as the lead COVID-19 officer on the Swimireland database. So that's the lead COVID officers. So now we have, let's say, the ordinary COVID-19 officers. And again, the following roles are excluded for being a COVID-19 officer, and they are the club children's officer, your CCO, and again, your coach or stroke teacher. So, and this is important. A COVID-19 officer may act in the role of the parent on duty, provided that they have attended a Swimireland COVID-19 officer training workshop and have been approved by the club committee to act in that role. So the parent on duty may act in the role of COVID-19 officer, again, provided that this training done and they have been approved by the club committee to act in that role. And again, their roles and responsibilities are keep up to date with COVID-19 advice and protocols, as they change. Again, oversee all club activities. That includes all sessions, whether it's in the pool, it's land work, gym, or it's outdoor activities. So all club activities need to have a COVID-19 officer on duty. Again, promote good practices, lead by example. Attend a Swimireland COVID-19 officer training and remind members of COVID-19 practices. Report non-compliance to person in charge. Now, the person in charge on a session is the coach, okay? That has always been the case. Or you can report the non-compliance to the lead COVID-19 officer. Ensure records are kept for contact tracing purposes, and we'll go into that a little bit more detail in a few minutes. And again, communicate any concerns that you may have in relation to COVID-19 to the lead COVID-19 officer. So the requirements for a COVID-19 officer is just a Swimireland COVID-19 officer training, which is this session. Again, a signed revised code of conduct. And again, a completed self-report screening form for every time that you're acting in the role of a COVID-19 officer at a session. So for the COVID officer, you don't need membership, you don't need Garda vetting, you don't need safeguarding and so forth. Okay. So if we have a breach of protocol or code of conduct, you inform the person in charge, and they then will inform the lead COVID officer, and they, based on the severity of it, will deal with it informally. And by that, what it generally will be is, and what you will find a lot of this possibly might be just in relation to social distancing, and it's just a reminder, guys, that's not social distancing, and it can be as simple as that. That's all it needs to be. But it depends on the severity of it. Again, if it is more severe, then report it to the secretary for disciplinary action. So some general advice in relation to all of this, and this is the important bit. 95% of this is going to work if we all do this. So all coaches, swimmers, parents, club committee members must take personal responsibility for their own health and social distancing and all current guidelines and protocols. So we all have a personal responsibility for this to happen, for us to adhere to the current advice and protocols and procedures that's out there, and it's not just within the club. Like, we all have a personal responsibility in relation to anything COVID-19 related. Okay. Again, if you observe social distancing not being observed, you should advise them of such. And like I said, it can be just as simple, guys, that's not social distancing, come on. And it just needs to be as simple as that. So we also say you should read and have an understanding of the Swimireland Club Swimming Return to Water protocols, and again, the facilities return to water protocols. We have the links near in the second last slide as to where you can find the Swimireland Club Swimming Return to Water protocols. And again, if you just ask your facility, they will provide theirs to you. So again, it's important that you have a good working relationship with the facility and their staff. Because it's very important, that you understand what their protocols are, that, and they understand what we have put in place, what Swimireland have put in place for the return to water also. Again, identify entry and exits to and from the facility in line with their protocol. So when we're going back to pool sessions or whatever, we will always have to follow the facility's protocols, okay? And you'll find that they will have very good protocols in place. I was asked to go into Kilkenny Swimming Club on Monday, which is my local club, not that I'm a member, my daughter is, and they have a very good system in place as to entry into the building, entry into the changing rooms, and entry onto the deck, and again when you leave the pool back into the changing rooms, and how you exit the pool as well. And you'll find that every facility will have those procedures in place. So it's very important, you know, before you go back to sessions or whatever, that you have a walk through with your facility and their protocols, so that that can be communicated then to swimmers, parents, coaches, and so forth. Okay. Some other key items that you need to understand is whether they have the use of the changing rooms. I would imagine that by the time we get back to the water next week or the week after, or a couple of weeks time, whatever your club is returning to water, that you will be you will have access to the changing rooms. I know in Kilkenny they have a good system. What they have done is they've split their 2-hour sessions into 2 1-hour sessions. So the first squad that goes in for the first hour, they're going to use the changing rooms, or sorry, they're going to use the cubicles, and then the second squad that are coming in, because the changing rooms are quite big, they're going to use the changing rooms. Okay, so the first squad gets the cubicles and the second squad gets the changing rooms. So you'll find that your facility will have something similar in place. Again, ensure that you have hand wash stations, sanitation stations, and ensure that there's soap and sanitizer available at those stations. The other thing that you need to check is the showers, whether you're allowed to use the showers pre and post session. Again, you'll probably find that facility will allow that. The one thing I will say, and especially in the post showers, is it's not a social gathering anymore. You know yourself. Kids always gather around the showers, have the laugh and the joke after the session, and that's very important for kids. You know, but for the moment, that won't be allowed. You know, it's a quick shower and can change and exit the facility. So the self-report screening forms must be completed by all personnel. So that's everybody attending the session, your swimmers, your coaches, the COVID officer, or anybody else that might be attending the session, okay? Must be issued to the lead COVID officer prior to coming to the session, okay? And we highly recommend that this is done electronically. And there are new some systems in place for that to happen very successfully. So what we will be saying is, if a session is starting at 5:30 in the morning, the cutoff for these forms to be sent to the lead COVID officer is 7 or 8 o'clock the night before. Okay, and that's why it's very important that the lead COVID officer has set up their generic email within the club. So what happens, we're asking people to send in forms 7 or 8 o'clock the night before. What happens if something happens to your child overnight? If they become unwell with potentially a symptom of COVID-19, you stay at home. You do not come to the facility if your child or if your coach or anybody that's attending a session feels that they have a potential symptom of COVID-19. You stay at home, okay, and you contact your GP and take their advice, okay. Again, all COVID-19 information must be protected and kept in a secure location to comply with GDPR. Okay. So some samples of electronic self-report screening forms, and there are a lot out there. Like, there's Microsoft Forms, Google Forms, JotForm, SurveyMonkey, and there's one called ClubZap. Sport Ireland were saying that that's quite a good one. I'm not sure anything about it, but look, there's nearly always somebody within the club that's a reasonable IT expert, and you could ask them to give a bit of a hand with setting up whatever system you think is going to work best. But we highly recommend that it's done electronically. Okay. So that's our COVID-19 self-report screening form. A lot of it is just basic information, whether it's yes or no, the whole way down. Okay. So what we say is, if the answer to any of those is yes, you stay at home. You do not come to the session. Okay. Again, within the facility, check their isolation procedure. That they have an isolation room. Where is it, and what's their procedure for getting a swimmer or a coach or somebody that's involved in the session that may, during the session, become unwell with possible symptoms of COVID-19. Okay. Again, keep a record of individuals who have been isolated due to suspected COVID-19. That's all for contact screening purposes. And again, keep a record of restrictions imposed on individuals by COVID-19. Again, if somebody is advised, to stay away for 14 days, that we keep a record of that. So again, if you have a suspected confirmed COVID-19 case, you should inform the facility immediately, isolate the individual from all our other personnel, and again, take further action according to the protocols, whether they're sent home, advise them to contact their GP or the HSE, and take their advice at that stage. And again, assist in contact tracing. So if a person that was at a session has had a positive test for COVID-19, again, you'll be contacted by the HSE to assist them in contact tracing, and that's why it's very important, that if it's all done electronically, it's so easy then just to pass it on to the HSE, and they will kickstart their contact tracing systems that they have in place at the moment. And again, non-compliance reported to the person in charge or the club secretary. And again, ensure the social distancing protocols must be followed. You will find that there will be a massive high percentage of compliance with all current guidelines and advice from the various bodies and whatnot, because people are anxious to get into the pool, and they know what is required of them for this to be a success. So I would envisage that the odd non-compliance that you might have is just guys not adhering to the current social distance requirements that's there. So again, what are the symptoms? I think we all have a fair idea of what they are at the moment. It's a fever, a cough, shortness of breath, loss of change to your sense of smell or taste. So again, Swimireland may carry out spot checks to ensure that all the above is being complied with. And it's not that we're trying to come down hard on clubs to make sure that they're doing what is currently required. We all have, if you bring it back down to the baseline, we all have a responsibility to ensure the health, safety and welfare of all people, swimmers, coaches, committees and so forth. So it's very important that all of the above is adhered to. So again, like I said earlier, these are the links to our the Swimireland Return to Water roadmap, and again the Swimireland club resources. And I think Adam might be showing you a bit of a closer look at the club resources at the end. And I highly recommend that you read these documents. They're very, very informative. They're very comprehensive. A lot of work has gone into doing up all of these resources to ensure that everybody is going to be safe in the water when you do return to your club sessions. And again, just to recap, in relation to the lead COVID-19 officer, again, attend the Swimireland COVID-19 training workshop, ensure that your code of conduct has been sent in. Remember, you are the main contact liaison person at all times between the facility and the club, and again from the club to the facility. Again, report any non-compliance, be a Swimireland member, have your current vetting, Garda vetting or Access NI, and again your safeguarding for your jurisdiction. And again, the people that cannot act in that role is your club children's officer, your CCO, your coach, chair, secretary, and treasurer. And again, for the ordinary COVID-19 officer, again, attend the Swimireland COVID-19 training, have your current code of conduct updated, be at all sessions to oversee codes of conduct, and like I said, that's your pool sessions, your land training, and so forth. And again, you may act as the parent on duty, provided that you have the training done and being approved by the committee to act in that role. And again, the people that cannot act in that role is the club children's officer, and again your coach. Any questions?
That's great, Pat. Thank you very much for that. So guys, what we will do is, before we start asking questions, I'm just going to show you what Pat was mentioning there. Take me 2 seconds. I know I probably will forget otherwise. So what I will do is I'm just going to jump on here for 2 seconds. You should be able to see, Pat, can you see that there? Is that okay?
No, you haven't shared your screen yet, Adam.
Is it not coming up there? Okay. Let me see if that's come up. Come up there. That's coming on. Okay. Let's come up there, has it? Yep. Perfect. So what we have there, I can see it there. Yeah. So that's perfect. So guys, what we have there, that's the Swimireland website. So what you will have here, if you go to membership, okay, at the top of the screen, and you go into membership there, it will. Look at see, it's taking its time there. You'll go into this page here. You have a thing here along the subheading here, which is called Club Resources. Okay, if you click on the Club Resources there, and then if you scroll down, once you click on Club Resources, you scroll down there. There's a Club Resource Library. And to start with, this is where you'll find everything that we have as far as templates, documents, policies, procedures, not just to do with COVID-19, but everything to do with managing club. But the big piece of the puzzle here, I guess, at the moment is these return to water resources. And there you will find, if you click on that, a huge amount of information. And a lot of this has been circulated to clubs either today or yesterday around the self-declaration form, the self-report screening form, which Pat mentioned you need to do every session. There's operating procedures, there's a checklist template, there is the contraction of COVID-19. So what would you do if someone in the club did test positive for COVID-19? What would the club do and how would they deal with it? That's outlined in there. Living with high-risk individuals, the roles and responsibilities for the lead COVID officer and the officer, and the FAQ document there as well. Okay, so there is also another document which is not there, seems to be missing, but it did go to clubs today, was the self-report screening form FAQ, and that has a huge amount of information about the report, the form itself, and what to do with it, and how it's managed and things like that as well. So there's a lot of information there if you want to read up on it at a later date. It's all there and you can get it there for you. So that's perfect. So what we're going to do here is we are going to, I'm going to just bring Pat's screen back up here. So what we're going to do, guys, I'm going to give you an opportunity now. If you want to raise your hand, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. What I'll do is I'll unmute you, and then you can ask Pat there the questions, and we can see we can ask your questions there. So we'll see what if you have got anything there. So look, if you want to raise your hands there, guys, I'll unmute you and bring you in. Okay, I've got Catherine there. So Catherine Murphy, I'm going to unmute you there. You should be able to unmute yourself there now, Catherine. And are you there, Catherine?
Good evening, Catherine from
Perfect.
Academy. We're just checking in with the self-assessment screen. So from what we gather, it has to be completed for every attendance. Does that mean that a child would have to complete it every week?
It has to be completed every time that your child is going to attend a training session.
So we are a private pool, but our children do attend weekly for lessons. So we're gathering that form should be completed then once a week. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Sorry,
if you're training, sorry, Adam, go ahead, yeah.
Sorry, what club are you, Catherine?
Infinity Swim Academy.
Sorry, say that one again.
Infinity.
Okay, Infinity. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, Pat. Yeah, I just didn't hear what club you're at. Just making sure you're a Swimireland club. So yeah, that's fine. Sorry, Pat.
So if your training session is if you're training once a week, yes, so the screening form needs to be completed prior to that training session starting.
Thank you for that. And the staff also then once a week for the assessment?
Yes, everybody that is attending the training session, whether it's the swimmer, the coaches, the COVID-19 officer, or yes, everybody that is attending each training session. Is that okay?
Thank you. Yes.
No problem.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. We've got next person. We've got Kira Savage. So I'll get to you. I'll just unmute you there, Kira, if you want to. There you go. You should be able to jump in there.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. Perfect. Thank you.
It's just one extra question. Does the parent on duty have to complete that form as well?
Yes, everybody attending the training session, whether it's the swimmers, coaching staff, COVID-19 officer, or a separate person, yes, they need to fill up the form.
And if we have some parents that would we say that they cannot go into the pool area, that they must wait outside? Would we do complete a form?
That's up to each facility whether they will allow parents that are not necessarily involved in the training session into the facility, and you'll probably find at the start that they won't be allowed into the facility.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Kira. Next person I have there was Margaret. So Margaret, I'm just going to unmute you there, and you should be able to.
Hello.
There you go. Perfect. Hi, Margaret.
Good. In the event somebody taking unwell in the water, so they're showing symptoms, you know, hot or whatever, what do we do with the other swimmer in this session? You know, you isolate the one individual, but what do you do with the other people in the water or in the surrounding?
So the training session can continue on as normal. It's just that because, as long as everybody is adhering to the social distancing and so forth, well, then there's very little risk of somebody contacting COVID-19 from that person. So it's very important that everybody is aware that if they start to feel unwell during the session, that they make it known to the coach, who then will remove the swimmer from the pool immediately and then follow the procedure from the facility to where their isolating room is. Okay.
Okay, that's lovely. And in the event of a COVID incident, is it the officers, the lead officer will notify, the chain of how to trace it, or who informs the parents?
So what happens is, if a person that was attending a training session has a positive test result, well then the parent will notify the lead COVID-19 officer of this, but the HSE again will be notified of this positive test, and they will start their contact screening system, so to will.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thanks, Margaret. I've got Marie Donnelly. I'll just unmute you there, Marie.
Hi, how are you?
Hey.
Good. I have two questions. Basically, you were talking about cubicles and changing rooms, and particularly what you were saying there about maybe parents possibly. I know this will probably come to the facilities decisions rather than Swimireland's decisions, but I'm just thinking about the responsibility maybe of younger kids, maybe 8, 9, 10-year-old kids in changing rooms. We as a club would have taken responsibility for the kids out of the immediate pool deck area, and would be the parental responsibility in the changing areas and the shower areas. I'm just wondering, have you any thoughts about that? I know largely it would be the facilities decisions, regarding that, but
yeah, it will be. That's why it's very important that the club does a walk through with the facilities prior to squads coming back to the water, to ensure that everybody knows what the procedures are for using changing rooms or cubicles. But you will find facilities will not allow any parents into the changing areas, changing villages, and so forth with their kids. Even though you're saying, maybe 8 or 10-year-old kids, but it's important that they understand, the importance of social distancing when going back to the pool.
okay. And I was just wondering as well, and again, is this down to each facility rather than Swimireland, regarding, is any restrictions of number of children in a lane training at a time? Or again, is that the facilities decision?
No, we've set out guidelines within our documents that Adam has shown you there. That's why it's very important, everybody. Okay. You read the documents that are there. As the current restrictions that are there, basically what they're saying, within a 25-meter pool, 13 years and younger will have 3 per lane. Okay, from 13 to 18, there will be 4 per lane, and again, 18 plus will have 5 per lane. But there will be what we call home spots. Swimmers won't be starting at the shallow end altogether. There will be 1 swimmer at the shallow end, 1 swimmer at the 5-meter mark, 1 swimmer at the turn end, and again another swimmer in at the 5-meter mark. And that's where the social distancing will be maintained at that, because you'll find when swimmers go back, it's just about getting back into the water. It's not about mad sprints, sessions, and so forth. It's about our kids getting back into the water and just taking it nice and easy on technique sessions and so forth. It's not going to be right straight back into it, and there is no need at the start, especially for the younger squads, to be doing their 8, 10, 12, 14 hours per week. Especially, we always say when facilities open up to the clubs, that is just going to be for their top squads to start with, and then maybe they'll introduce the next squad and so forth. We don't recommend or envisage that when a club opens, it's all squads, all sessions, all hours. That's not going to be the case, and shouldn't be the case. Is that okay?
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great, Maria. And just, I guess, just for everyone, just like Pat said, it is very much a phased approach back to, and that's our advice. And starting with the older ones, and get it right with those older ones, get them to set the example for the young ones, get them to do it right, and then you slowly start to bring the younger ones back in. So that's great. Thanks, Marie. I've got Geraldine Coyle. I will unmute you there, and you should be able to come in there. Geraldine, you should be able to unmute yourself there. No, Geraldine, you there?
Can hear
Geraldine,
you
you
now,
there?
or-
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I can hear you now. That's perfect.
Okay, hi, thanks. Thanks for your presentation. It was very interesting and very informative. Just in relation, and going back to the forms again, I would just like to know, have you any guidance in relation to how long people should, like clubs should be holding on to that kind of information? Because I am very conscious of personal information and, GDPR and everything. So I was just wondering, do you have any guidance in relation to that?
Yes, so Sport Ireland have given us guidance on that, and they say the screening forms need to be kept for 1 month.
Okay.
So after that, they can be destroyed, but they need to be kept for 1 month according to Swim Ireland guidelines, or Sport Ireland guidelines.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thanks, Geraldine. I've got Maria. Okay, Maria, I'll unmute you there. You should be able to jump in there.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
can.
Hey, Maria.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify, can a teacher or coach be a COVID officer if they are not teaching or coaching during the session?
So the answer to that is no. Okay, so all coaches and teachers are exempt from acting in the role of a COVID-19
So if you're not
officer.
teaching or coaching, you can't, if you're a parent, for instance. Sorry, Pat, could you repeat that?
Yeah,
So
so
if you're a coach and you're not actually coaching, but you're there as a parent, can you be a COVID officer?
if you're there as a parent out and not involved in the session whatsoever, if you're just purely there as a parent for that session,
Okay.
you may act in the role of COVID-19 officer. But if that changes, that cannot change anywhere during that session.
Okay. So and the
Okay,
same, yeah.
You cannot get actively involved in the session in any shape or form. If you're there as a parent only,
Yes.
then you can, yeah.
Okay, and similarly, if you're a teacher, but you're not actually teaching, but you're on deck as a COVID officer, could you be a COVID officer? I'm just thinking of a learn to swim environment, which is slightly different to a club environment.
Adam, do you want to answer that part of the question?
The way it's been set is it would be a no. We'll have to take that away, Maria, and discuss it and come back to you, because
Okay,
at the moment,
thank you.
at the moment it is set that if you're a coach or teacher and you're not coaching or teaching, you are still not able to act in the role. But look, I will consider that in a Learn to Swim program, and we'll speak with the others to see what the general consensus is, and we'll come back.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Glenn Anderson. So Glenn, I've unmuted you there. You should be able to jump in.
Hi there. How are you doing? Can you hear me?
Good,
Yes, we
yeah,
can,
perfect.
yes.
Thanks.
Perfect. My daughter's with Limerick Swimming Club, and I just wanted to ask the timelines. I'm a bit confused because the protocols that the government issued were that the forms had to be submitted 3 days prior to return. So they call them pre-return forms. Are the clubs going to be expected to get these pre-return forms 3 days in advance?
And the pre-form even before the session starts, you know.
Okay.
Is
Perfect.
that okay?
No, thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Glenn. Pat, I've got Pat there, so I should unmute you there, Pat. You should be able to jump in there.
Sure. Adam, Pat, thank you very much, and thanks for the presentation. Very informative. Just 2 questions I have. Where a parent may not have a Swimireland number, how do we get around that? Maybe there's a way. I'm
no,
not aware of it.
Very simple, Pat. You just literally send them the link to the database, and they go on and create themselves a profile. You won't be charged a membership or anything like that. They just literally go to the database, create a profile, and then they find the COVID course and book onto the course. Yeah, simple as that.
Okay, and just this is kind of a general question. Like, we've looked at it here and we've already been debating it, where we'll have a parent on duty and then a COVID officer, and we're looking at combining both. So we're considering, and I'll say considering, encouraging all our parents to do the COVID officer training. Am I going to cause an issue? Is there capacity if suddenly 100 parents from Tralee start booking out courses? Will I be shot?
No, not at all, no. We've added a number of more courses, and we'll be adding more courses over the next couple of weeks as well. Like, you know, what we are seeing is, you know, we just try and prioritize that there's enough spaces for each club to initially go back to the pool. You know, there would be no need for 50 or 60 parents to be trained up immediately at the moment, you know, because we are saying, you know, it should be a phased return to work, you know, or return to water. So we recommend, you know, if that be the case, you know, just add them on maybe 10 at a time on each course, so that we're able to cater for all clubs in the country. But absolutely no problem with any amount of people.
No, that's perfect. That answered. No, I'll tell them hold the horses for a while. So, but thanks.
But certainly ensure that you have enough parents trained up before you go back to the pool, though.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Thank you.
No problem.
Perfect.
Cheers, folks.
Thank you, Pat. Excuse me if I get the name wrong. Is it Celia? Celia Redmond? You should be unmuted there.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, I was just wondering if child needs the first aid or had an accident in the pool, if you need to help the child to take him out from the pool, you're breaking the social distancing. If I was the COVID officer, what step should I follow? Does person needs the protection gear or to take out the child, or what's the story with this?
No, you will always find, you know, First aid is supplied by the lifeguards in each facility. So it's up to the facility to put in place what procedure that they have for extracting a swimmer from a pool session who needs just general first aid facilities. So it's your facility that will take over from that.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
No problem.
That's perfect. Thank you. I have Ivor. I'll unmute you there. You should be able to jump in.
Hello.
How you doing?
Hi, Ivor.
Yeah, just a question about the numbers of swimmers in the water and the documentation that's available. With that in mind, I mean, was that document made and the numbers of swimmers in the water decided? I mean, before the social distancing measures are changing all the time. I mean, we're reduced to a metre for the children, and also, I mean, in the north, we've got the return to full competitive sport very, very soon. So it's a double-edged sword there, double-edged question. Why only 3 in the water and not more? Because obviously lots of clubs, the more swimmers they have in the water makes it more financially viable. And if the government or the executive said full return to competitive sport, can we not have more swimmers in the water?
Those numbers are based on the current guidelines as set out by the government, which is still the 2 metre ruling. You know, like I said, everything is a live document. You know, so when that social distancing will, and you know, it's highly likely that it will change officially from 2 metres to 1 metre. So when that happens, then we will update our documentation to take in the new advice and guidelines by the government. And that's why we keep saying it's very important that we keep updated, you know, for guidelines and that change consistently, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, for that reason, then would possibly Swim Ulster become involved because we're at 1 metre now. So could that lead us to getting more swimmers in the water with that 1 metre distance?
Yes, like I said, those documents will change. I think that information just came out there today. I think, you know, so
yeah,
we will be reviewing the documents based on that information, you know, and potentially then that will be updated in the next couple of days or early next week.
Brilliant, thank you.
No problem.
I guess just further on that, Ivor, we have a return to water work group, and Stephen Cuddy from Swim Ulster sits on that, so he fits in to all our protocols and everything. So he has a big input into everything that's done there as well. So
that's great. Just give him a nudge then. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. I've got Porrig Mallon. I will unmute you there, Porrig. You should be able to jump in.
Thanks, Pat and Adam. Just a quick question regarding the documentation that needs filled in by the swim teacher. Our teachers are here every day, so does that document need to be filled every day they enter the building?
Are you talking about the self-screening form?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It needs to be filled out by anybody attending a training session, swimmers, coaches, COVID-19 officers, and so forth.
That's good. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Porrig. I have Stephanie. Stephanie, I'll just unmute you. You should be able to jump in.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for all the work that's been done so far. Can I just double check the self-screening form? Is it to be completed by parents or at what age? Complete for themselves.
Okay, I think I've got your question there. You're a bit low there, somebody else speaking. So, could we ask anybody that's not asking a question just to mute themselves there?
Yeah, I'm just looking here. There shouldn't be anyone, but I'm just going to mute everyone. Just make sure. I'll just bring Stephanie back in. Stephanie, you should be able to jump back in. I've just muted everyone again. So yeah, if you got the question there, Pat, you need to ask it again there.
Thanks. Do you want me to ask it again?
Yeah, go again, Stephanie. Yeah, yeah.
Great. Just about the self-screening form, I was wondering, obviously parents complete it for children up to a certain age. At what point then does it become the swimmer? At what age do you have a guidance roughly of what rough age the swimmer can complete it themselves, or is that 18, 16, 18?
Yeah, no, it'll be 18, Stephanie. It'll be 18.
Be 18. So parental responsibility up to the 18 then.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. I have Tom. I'll unmute you there, Tom, and you should be able to jump in.
Hello, thank you. I would just like to find out what a typical training session would look like for the COVID-19 officer. I mean, will we have lists of people who have and have not completed the forms on the, within the last 24 hours? Are we checking them off lists? Are we policing 2-meter rules? So on and so forth. What they're doing during the session and after the session. And I see Pat Daly is still muted.
Is he muted, is he?
Yeah.
Okay, what happened there? Pat, you there?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I had a problem with my audio there, sorry.
Okay, good. Okay. Do you want to take?
Okay, so yeah, so basically what the roles are, why we say you know, everybody should submit their forms to the lead COVID officer the evening before, and they then will email the COVID officer that's on duty the list of swimmers and coaches that are attending the session that they're on duty for. Okay, so then you just tick off as the swimmers come in that they have sent in their pre-screening form the day before. Okay, what we're saying is if a swimmer turns up that hasn't sent in their form, you know, they can't be allowed into the facility and take part in the session. Okay, and again, your main role, and you'll find your main roles is the social distancing. You know, ensure that the social distancing is maintained for the full duration of the session.
That's perfect.
Is that okay?
That's perfect. And is it down to the COVID officer to police the social distancing, or do they report it to the person in charge or the lead COVID officer?
If the lead COVID officer is there, they can report it to the lead COVID officer, but if not, yes, you report it to the person in charge.
So we're not going over to children and telling them you're not 2 meters apart from that other person, so on.
No, you bring it to the, if you're an ordinary COVID officer, you bring it to the attention of the person in charge.
That's perfect. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Perfect. That's great. Thanks, Tom. Maria, I've got, so you've got your hand up again there. I'll just unmute you there. If you want to come back in.
No, sorry, I didn't have my hand up. Sorry.
Okay, must have still been left up. No worries. Thanks, Maria. Okay, I've got Rory. I'll unmute you. Rory there, Rory Ryan.
Yep. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Yes, we can. Yes, yeah.
Just wondering, is there different COVID training then for an officer that will be doing the Learn to Swim, or for facilities as well? Because this is very club focused, so I'm just wondering if there's alternate training.
No, this will be the training for all club sessions or return to water, whether it's Learn to Swim or whatever. What the difference is, the risk assessment will change based, you know, if the risk assessment will change from club sessions to Learn to Swim, but the training, COVID-19 officer training, is the same.
Okay, all right, thank you.
No problem.
if I guess it's on that, if it is for facilities, I know Island Active are running training stuff, aren't they, Pat? So that's where facilities would go to get advice on protocols.
Yes.
Yeah. I have Martina. I'll unmute you then, Martina. So you should be able to unmute yourself there, Martina.
Yep, there you go.
Perfect.
Sometimes I was the parent in charge on pool duty of about 50 kids. I knew very few of them. So there would have to be some sort of standing at a table and kids standing in a row giving their names, and I'd have an alphabetical sheet. It would have to be an organized event, or it would be very cumbersome and timely.
Not necessarily,
to be checking off that they filled out those forms online, let's say.
Well,
how would you envisage that would happen? Because if you had 50 people showing up at UL swimming pool for 5:30 in the morning, and I'm the COVID officer, and I have to check off all these people have done that form online.
Okay, first of all, we don't envisage any club coming back with 50 swimmers to any session to start with. Okay, this needs to be a phased return. Okay, and again, it's up to each club as to what system that they're going to put in place. The protocols, even if people are outside, they're not going to come in the door in a group of 50. You'll find the facility will have it's 2 meters apart, and it's one in, and then 2 meters behind is another person. They're not going to land all together in a group of 50. But like I said, we definitely don't
let's say 20.
50.
Let's say 20. UL is a big facility, so let's say there are 20 people at it. So they're all coming in 2 meters apart. But there's still 20 people, and I don't know their names. I suppose I would get to know them, but I wouldn't be doing pool duty or COVID-19 officer duty that often.
Yes.
I suppose they would give me their name, and I would have a list, and it would be in alphabetical order. And
like I said, that's up to the system that you put in place, but it's a very simple, if you don't know the person, sorry, what's your name? But again, it's up to each club with what protocols that they put into place. But like, if you're unsure of who the swimmer or the person coming through the door is, it's very simple. Sorry, what's your name? Is that okay?
Yeah.
No problem.
Thanks, Martina. Then we've got one last question there. So Stefan, I'm you there?
You hear me? Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes,
far away there.
So, how do you envisage water polo coming back?
Do you want to add them, or will I take a step?
Yeah, no, I can jump in. I know the water polo at the moment, the protocols are being re-looked at, considering the advice. So there's going to be some new protocols coming in very shortly. I know the group met today. There's a return to water polo group. They're looking at that. So there is going to be updated stuff come out in the next few days. As far as I envisage it, though, it is going to be very much swimming based and working on skills rather than contact competitive element to it. It's going to be much more of an individual skills swimming basis, is the way I understand. I haven't seen the revised document yet, so I can't comment further on what it looks like, but it will be out fairly shortly.
Yeah, because if we have a squad of, say, 13, 14 players, are we allowed to have the 13 or 14 players in the water at once?
It would obviously depend on the size of the pool, and so, but as far as I understand and looking at numbers, I think yes. But again, it's very much about individuals working on their own skills and swimming. There's even, some of the original stuff was looking at just lane swimming and things like that. But I know that's being revised now, with like I said, with the changes in the government advice. So again, I don't want to comment further on that because I haven't seen the revised protocols.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, no worries.
Perfect. I'll take one more question here. We have Suzanne.
Hello.
Hey, Suzanne.
Hi. I just want to ask a question there about the self-assessment form. I haven't actually seen it, so just wondering, is there any mention on that about other members in the family symptomatic or positive with or getting tested for COVID that should be on that form?
Yes, that is one of the questions that is on that form. I said that form is also in our club resources on our website, but your club would have had received that form already.
Yeah, I just haven't seen the form. I just want to be sure because if they wouldn't be out in the pool, obviously. Isn't that the case? If there was anybody in the family being tested or in isolation, yes, they shouldn't be in the pool. Okay.
That's correct, yes. So, like, if the answer to anything on the form is yes, it's, you know, stay away from the pool.
Okay.
Is that okay?
I just haven't seen the form.
Okay.
That's great. Thanks. So that's it, guys. Look, so I just wanted to say thanks again for everyone for signing, and I hope you got all your answers question there. Like I said, and like I've shown you there, everything there is under the resource page there. So go there, have a read. Again, the contact details of who you need to contact if you have further questions is there as well. So I just want to thank Pat for delivering, and if he has one last message, and then we'll sign off for this evening.
Yeah, guys, you know, listen, thanks very much for attending tonight, you know, but what I would say is, you know, don't try and overcomplicate the role. It doesn't necessarily need to be overcomplicated, you know. There are some basic steps that we need to follow, but it's the basic steps that we've all heard 10,000 times over the last 3 months, you know. But you know, if you're in doubt, contact us. You know, we are here to help and support you as much as possible. So don't be afraid to send in some emails if you have questions or whatever. We will reply to you because we are here to help and support you as much as possible. And enjoy your return to water.
Thanks,
also,
Pat, and thanks everyone.
Thanks to Adam as well for his help tonight.
Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you.